There were these people who achieved these extraordinary results, and because, like the Greeks who walked the earth 2,000 years before Jesus Christ did, because they couldn't figure out what these people had that made them so capable of getting such extraordinary results out of people, they gave them a name. They called them charismatics. Said, oh, he has charisma. You know, charisma is like a big bucket that they use when they can't figure out why a person is able to get extraordinary results. Charisma, I don't know, is it because he's a great speaker? Yeah, but not really that. Is it because he listens? Yeah, but not just that. And so the Greeks coined that word. You know what it means literally? God-given gift. It means literally God-given gift. And so when we talk about charismatics today, and we talk about charisma, we're talking about people having a God-given gift. And when you look at the people you consider to be genuinely charismatic, hell, they really do appear to have something like that. In the business world, it's no different. There are lots of them all around us. Growing up all the time, you recognize Steve Jobs, you recognize Welch, you may recognize Bezos, Branson from Virgin, and I always get the pronunciation of this wrong, Pierre Omidyar, who created eBay. People who were able to take a team of people and just light them up and zoom them to extraordinary productivity. And we call them charismatic leaders. And you know why we call them charismatic leaders? Because it absolves us of any responsibility for trying to be as good as them, because charisma is a God-given gift. And if you didn't get it, well, you shouldn't really be aspiring to it, because if the big guy decided you weren't getting it, well, that's just the way it is. Well, imagine the most charismatic person in the room is standing in the corner of the room with their head down and maybe a bag over their head and they're not moving. Said, now everybody comes into the room. How charismatic an impact will they have on them? He said, well, nothing. He said, when does he start having charismatic impact? He said, when he turns and smiles at them, or he looks at them, or he touches. Oh, when he does something. So it's down to the way he behaves. And that was where we started from. We said, hell, it has to be the way you behave. It comes down to behavior. And if it's down to behavior, it means if you care to commit to assimilating the behaviors that charismatic leaders assimilate, you can become, by our definition, a charismatic leader who is a more engaging leader who, by definition, gets better results. That's a pretty good aspiration for a leader in this current marketplace. When we were kids, as we'd say in Ireland, fado, which means a long time ago, at Christmas, there were a couple of perennial presents. You always got a comic book. You know, it was kind of an annual, we called them. And somehow there was always a kaleidoscope in there as well. Now, the kids these days probably get an MS Windows 7.0 kaleidoscope application. I don't know, but we got this cardboard tube that came from Hong Kong, and it had a load of mirrors in the back end of it at all sorts of funny angles. And it had a load of little colored beads. And you looked through it, and when you turned it, you got these fantastic, I think they're called fractal patterns, but you got these wonderful patterns just like this. Here's the critical thing. All those beads in there, hundreds, thousands of them, you turn it even fractionally, and one bead slides and it moves a little bit. And the picture changed to something that probably has never been seen down that tube before. And will never be seen again. It changes dramatically. One bead. Charisma is just like that. Everybody has some of the beads in their behavior. You go through this and you realize every leader, by dint of the fact that they found themselves in that leadership position, are already adept at some of those behaviors. But if they can polish up one or two or three more, like the kaleidoscope, they can change the pattern out of sight. It is not a game of having to turn yourself inside out. It's a game of small changes in behavior that make a dramatic difference. And when you read the book, you'll see it is small things, and there are lots of them. Do you have to assimilate everything in every page? Absolutely not. You can change things overnight by changing small things. And we found that we could describe why they had a charismatic impact using two key principles that we talk about in the book. Every single English-speaking audience in the world knows what WIFM stands for. What's in it for me? And you're going to think I'm cynical, but let me say it anyway. When it comes down to it, most of what we do, most of the things that we do day to day, are done in our own self-interest. We do it because there's something in it for us. Now, strip away all the niceties, all the altruism, all of the societal norms and so on and so forth. We act in our own self-interest. What we found was the charismatic leaders understand this, whether it's intuitively or because they read a book. Well, couldn't it be because they read a book? Because nobody's ever said this before. We're first. So they either intuitively do that, and they said the only way to get Hisham to want to enthusiastically engage with what I want him to do for me is to know what he wants to get out of that. To know him well enough so that anything I ask him to do, he's able to identify, because of the way I work with him, what's in it for him. This is one of the best sentences, honestly, I think, in the book. It said the extent to which you are perceived as being charismatic is directly proportional to the extent to which people feel or fare better after each interaction with you. Now, feel or do better after each interaction. Charismatic leaders make a decision that when people interact with them, it will make a positive difference to them. And when you see some of the behaviors we talk about, you'll see this describes it. If you go out of here and you forget everything else I said, remember Whitlam and remember the charismatic equation. And if that informs everything that you do in the way you interact with your people, you won't go wrong, even if you don't read the rest of the book. One of the most critical things we found from this study, and that has been echoed by other studies, is you will go further and faster as a leader with good communication skills than with any other single set of behaviors. If you have nothing to say and nothing inside your head, but you can communicate that nothing really well, you have about 40% of what it takes to be charismatic. 40% of the impact, charismatic impact, came down to communication. And not just this sort of show-off communication, the interpersonal, I really want to hear from you, and as we would say in a checkpoint sense, listening carefully without interrupting and soliciting feedback and suggestions and making it comfortable to raise concerns and so on. So communication was really decisive. That framed statement of the vision that hangs in the hall of your organization means nothing to anybody except the 4 or 5 people who created it in a strategic meeting. It's important to have it because it says, here's why we exist. But it's not important to the people in Regis who have just come through, say, the last 2 or 3 years. They've lost some of their colleagues, complete reorganization, uncertain environment. What's important to them is, what does the vision mean for me? So, charismatic leaders reinterpret the vision so that it fits the people they're trying to motivate and engage. They know them well enough to be able to do that. Isn't it great when you deal with somebody enthusiastic? Isn't it great when you deal with the people in this room? When you see somebody who genuinely is enthusiastic about what they're doing, it's written all over their face. You know they're having a good, you know they love what they're doing. And what the book will tell you is that you don't even realize, but you start mimicking their behavior and their mannerisms and everything because you want to feel like they feel. And it happens, and it works, and it's so extraordinarily contagious. I'm walking into the room and saying, you know, I know the economy is really kind of destroyed at the moment, but we'll be okay, we'll get through. Let's go for it, and let's set a really ambitious goal for 2011. Okay, guys, you know, the enthusiasm was what motivates people. Since the year dot, that they really need to recognize and provide formal recognition to our leaders, or to the people who work for them. We've never told them why it works. They've always taken it on faith. 2 quick things that are described in some detail in the book. 1, did you know when you give somebody praise and recognition, you cause a chemical reaction in their brain that causes a little squirt of serotonin and dopamine to be injected into their brain. Those are the feel-good chemicals that make you feel good from eating chocolate or from taking exercise and several other activities that I can't mention from the stage. But they are injected and just make you feel good. Now, if somebody says to you, God, Sia, that was a wonderful job, and the reason I say that is, and they praise you, and that injects the chemicals into your brain, you say, that feels pretty good. I think I'll do what I was doing again so I get a little bit more of that. And the second one is, I love it. I almost can't say it because I'm Irish. It's the norm of reciprocity. Okay? That's difficult to say for me. And that is, when you give somebody, when you do somebody a turn, Cosmetic counters, ladies, or the Hare Krishna for anybody on the street. Hare Krishna guy comes up and gives you a beautiful book for free. They're broke, but they give you this $12 book, or you go onto the Clinique counter and you get a free sample that clearly has some serious value. The reason that works, the reason they do that and they give that away, and the reason charities send you expensive pens or send you Christmas cards at Christmas, is because there's a psychological thing we all share in common called the norm of reciprocity that says, even if I don't like the person who's doing me a good turn, shoot, I have to do it back. So when you give somebody, do them the good turn of giving them feedback and make them feel good and making them feel good about themselves, they are indebted and they want to cooperate with you. That's why recognition works. It's chemical, it's psychological. Here are the two factors that drive a person's results. And boy, I know, like me, that you have always been subject to the power of another person's belief and their other person's expectations of you. You get it all the time from the profiles people. The single most decisive factor in driving an individual's productivity is the expectation their leader has of them. If they set the expectations high, now not ridiculously high, but they set it at a stretch, they do what Dale Carnegie called in 1932, they give them a good reputation to live up to. Jim Serbasco and Bud Haney, when they hired me, after they had about 4 martinis in me in the Lancaster House in London, that was before we started negotiating the package, by the way, Jim turned to me and he said it many times, he said, "Derek, you're a really talented guy. You have such extraordinary talent. I'm looking forward to you being in this organization because I know that anything we give you to do, however much a stretch it is, you'll do it. And not only that, you're the sort of guy who brings everything in on time." What are you going to do when somebody gives you that reputation? You're not going to let it slip. The expectations that others have of you are extraordinary. The second driving factor is your expectations of yourself. All of the research is all laid out in the book. A great leader, a charismatic leader, sets the expectations for the people at a level that they achieve more than they thought they could. And when they achieve more, oh, I can do more than I thought. Then their own self-expectations go up, and so they persist a little bit longer and get the results. Not because they're any better, but because they believe they should push to get the results. Charismatic leaders drive engagement, engagement drives the bottom line, and any one of us can be more effectively charismatic, more commercially charismatic. All of you have behaviors already that contribute positively to you being an engaging leader. But I bet you don't know what they are.